Good morning, everybody. It is the 10th of September, 8:30 in the morning. Welcome to today's daily cyber briefing, and I am your host, Rich Benfield, standing in for Stephen Ridgway in his absence. Quite a few bits of interesting news today in the cyber press. So we have today, where are we? A critical SonicWall SSL VPN bug has been exploited in ransomware attacks. Quad 7 botnet targets more Soho and VPN routers than media servers. New Rambo attack, and this is an interesting one. New Rambo attack uses RAM radio signals to steal data from air-gapped networks. Russia's top secret military unit reportedly plots undersea cable sabotage. A new Veeam vulnerability puts thousands of backup servers at risk, and patch now in capital letters on this article, so it must be serious. And finally, a London high school sent students home following a ransomware attack. So, up first, we have the critical SonicWall SSL VPN bug that's been exploited in ransomware attacks. So, ransomware affiliates exploit a critical security vulnerability in SonicWall's SonicOS firewall devices to breach victims' networks. It's tracked as CVE 2024 40766, that is 40766, and this improper access control flaw affects Gen 5 through to Gen 7 firewalls. SonicWall patched it on August 22nd and warned that it only impacted the firewall's management access interface. However, on Friday, SonicWall revealed that the security vulnerability also impacted the firewall's SSL VPN feature and was now being exploited in attacks. The company warned customers to apply the patch as soon as possible for affected products without sharing details regarding in-the-wild exploitation. That same day, Arctic Wolf security researchers linked the attacks with Akira ransomware affiliates who targeted SonicWall devices to gain initial access to their targets' networks. In each instance, the compromised accounts were local to the devices themselves rather than being integrated with a centralized authentication solution such as Active Directory, said Stefan Hostetler, a senior threat intelligence researcher at Arctic Wolf. Additionally, MFA was disabled for all compromised accounts, and the SonicOS firmware on the affected devices were within the versions known to be vulnerable to CVE 2024 40766. Also, Rapid7 spotted ransomware groups targeting SonicWall's SSL VPN accounts in recent incidents, but said that evidence linking the CVE 40766 to these incidents is still circumstantial. Both Arctic Wolf and Rapid7 mirrored SonicWall's warning and urged admins to upgrade to the latest SonicOS firmware version as soon as possible. So, if you're running a Gen 5, Gen 6 or Gen 7 firewall from SonicWall, please go ahead and patch it as soon as you can. Next up, Quad 7 botnet targets more Soho and VPN routers and media servers. So the Quad 7 botnet is evolving its operation by targeting additional Soho devices with new custom malware for Zixel VPN appliances, Ruckus wireless routers, and Accentra media servers. This comes in addition to the TP-Link routers reported previously by Sequoia and first reported by researcher GI7Worm, who gave the botnet its name due to targeting port 7777. Also, the ASUS routers targeted by a separate cluster discovered by Team Cymru 2 weeks later. Sequoia has compiled a new report warning about the evolution of Quad 7, which includes setting up new staging servers, launching new botnet clusters, employing new backdoors and reverse shells, and moving away from SOX proxies for stealthier operation. The continued evolution of the botnet shows that its creators were not deterred by the mistakes exposed by cybersecurity analysis and are now transitioning to more evasive technologies. Apologies for how I pronounced Team Cymru. I'm not Welsh. Quad 7's operational goal remains murky, possibly for launching distributed brute force attacks on VPNs, Telnet, SSH, and Microsoft 365 accounts. So, the Quad 7 botnet comprises of several subclusters identified as variants of star login, with each of them targeting specific devices and displaying a different welcome banner when connecting to the Telnet port. So basically, the list of malicious clusters and their welcome banners are Xlogin, which is Telnet bound to port 7777 on TP-Link routers, A-Login, which is on port 63256 on ASUS routers, R-Login, which is port 63210 on Ruckus, AX-Login, or AX-Login, Telnet banner on Accentra NAS devices, and Zylogin, which is bound to port 3256 on Zixel VPN appliances. Some of these large clusters, like Xlogin and A-Login, that's TP-Link and ASUS, roughly translated, compromise several thousand devices. And others, like R-Login, which started around June 2024, only count for around 298 infections as of the publication of this article that we're reading. So the main thing really is, obviously, be careful if you're running Ruckus or Accentra devices, or even Zixel, but the main target at present appears to be TP-Link and ASUS routers. So we're not seeing any patches as yet to mitigate this. However, keep an eye on the vendors' websites, apply patches as quickly as you can. Also, change your default admin credentials with a strong password and disable web admin portals if they're not needed. And if your device is no longer supported, you are strongly advised to upgrade to a newer model that continues to receive security updates. Next, new Rambo attack uses RAM radio signals to steal data from air-gapped networks. So this is interesting. A novel sidechain attack has been found to leverage radio signals emanated by a device's random access memory as a data exfiltration mechanism, posing a threat to air-gapped networks. So this technique has been codenamed Rambo by Dr. Mordecai Guri, the head of the Offensive Cyber Research Lab in the Department of Software and Information Systems Engineering at the Ben-Gurion University of the Negev in Israel. Using software-generated radio signals, malware can encode sensitive information such as files, images, key logging, biometric information, and encryption keys, Dr. Guri said in a newly published research paper. With software-defined radio hardware and a simple off-the-shelf antenna, an attacker can intercept transmitted raw radio signals from a distance. The signals can then be decoded and translated back into binary information. So Dr. Guri is an interesting chap. Over the years, he's concocted various mechanisms to extract confidential data from offline networks by taking advantage of SATA cables, LEDs on network interface cards, and even dynamic power consumption. So some of the other unconventional approaches devised by this researcher entail leaking data from air-gapped networks via covert acoustic signals generated by graphics processing units, that's GPU fans, ultrasonic waves produced by built-in motherboard buzzers, and even printer display panels and status LEDs. This guy sounds like a mad scientist, and I'm totally here for it. Absolutely respect what he's trying to do here. So last year, Dr. Guri demonstrated Air Keylogger, a hardwareless radio frequency keylogging attack that weaponizes radio emissions from a computer's power supply to exfiltrate real-time keystroke data to a remote attacker. To leak confidential data, the processor's working frequencies are manipulated to generate a pattern of electromagnetic emissions from the power unit modulated by keystrokes, Dr. Guri noted in the study. The keystroke information can be received at distances of several meters away via an RF receiver or a smartphone with a simple antenna. As always, with attacks of this kind, it requires the air-gapped network to be first compromised through other means, such as a rogue insider, poisoned USB drives, or a supply chain attack, thereby allowing the malware to trigger the covert data exfiltration channel. Rambo is no exception in that the malware is used to manipulate RAM such that it can generate radio signals at clock frequencies, which are then encoded using Manchester encoding and transmitted so as to be received from a distance away. The encoded data can include keystrokes, documents, and biometric information. An attacker on the other end can leverage SDR, that's software-defined radio, to receive the electromagnetic signals, demodulate and decode the data, and retrieve the exfiltrated information. So there's a load of technical stuff at the bottom of this article. We'll put the links in the socials so you can read it at your own leisure. But suffice to say, your air-gapped network might not be as safe as you think it is in the future. Next up, Russia's top-secret military unit reportedly plots undersea cable sabotage. So, the US are alarmed by heightened Kremlin naval activity worldwide. Russia's naval activity near undersea cables is reportedly drawing the scrutiny of US officials, further sparking concerns that the Kremlin may be plotting to sabotage underwater infrastructure via a secretive, dedicated military unit called the General Staff Main Directorate for Deep Sea Research. We are concerned about heightened Russian naval activity worldwide and that Russia's decision calculus for damaging US and allied undersea critical infrastructure may be changing, a US official told CNN in an exclusive report. Russia is continuing to develop naval capabilities for undersea sabotage mainly through GUGI, which is General Staff Main Director for Deep Sea Research, a closely guarded unit that operates surface vessels, submarines, and naval drones. CNN, citing two US officials, reported that Russian ships have been spotted near critical deep sea cables and infrastructure far away from the country's shores. Knocking out internet and telecommunications traffic travelling across these fibre optic cables would have a devastating effect on government, military, and private sector communications. More than 95% of international data flows through these submarine cables, which puts them at increasing risk of both cyber and physical attacks, and not only during times of international conflict. Former US Navy intelligence officer and current KLAB's US President Jeff Huggins told the Register in an earlier interview. Last year, public broadcasters of Sweden, Denmark, Norway, and Finland uncovered a Russian fleet of suspected spy ships operating in Nordic waters, reportedly for purposes of sabotaging both submarine cables and wind farms. In addition to communications, the cables also carry electricity between European countries. The news comes amid an uptick in Russian cyber attacks and Uncle Sam's increasing crackdown on Kremlin-backed military hacking activities targeting computer systems in the US and 25 other NATO countries that supported Ukraine. A Pentagon spokesperson told the Register, Russia has been involved in destabilizing activities around the world and we continue to monitor their activities. We have nothing further to provide on this issue currently. We also contacted the US Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, CISA, but haven't heard back. America's rhetoric, at least, is escalating in response. Any activities that damage seabed infrastructure, including undersea cables, especially during periods of heightened tensions, risks misunderstandings and misperceptions that could lead to unintended escalation, the US official told CNN. The US would be especially concerned about damage to our allies' critical undersea infrastructure. So, this is significantly larger than 2 men in a rowboat with a pair of scissors. Reading between the lines, and the US were quite clear in their language there, that this would be seen as an act of war. Not that I'm scaremongering or anything like that, but, it is a distinct possibility. Moving on, new Veeam vulnerability puts thousands of backup servers at risk. Patch now. Now, this article was released on hackread.com only 2 minutes ago, and I think they are a touch late in the game. You might have heard about this already, but a critical vulnerability, CVE 2024-40711, in Veeam backup and replication software allows attackers to gain full control without authentication. Immediate updates are essential to protect sensitive data from exploitation. So, that's CVE 2024-40711. It requires no authentication, and it makes it particularly dangerous for organizations that rely on Veeam for data protection and backup services. CVE 2024-40711 is classified as a critical remote code execution vulnerability. It affects Veeam backup and replication version 12.1.2.172 and earlier versions. If exploited, this flaw could enable attackers to execute arbitrary code, leading to data breaches and deploying ransomware on vulnerable systems used by businesses worldwide. According to Censys, a threat intelligence platform, there are currently 2,833 Veeam backup and replication servers exposed on the internet, mostly in Germany and France. Oh, well, you chaps are letting the side down. Come on, Germany and France, why are you exposing these servers to the internet? These are your backup servers. It's critical stuff. Keep them hidden away, please. And this isn't the first time that Veeam's software has been vulnerable to such attacks. Earlier this year, another vulnerability, that's CVE 2023-27532, which was disclosed in July, was exploited by notorious ransomware groups like Estate Ransomware, Akira, and Fin7. The exploitation allowed threat actors to hunt for initial access, credential theft, and other malicious activities. The increasing trend of ransomware attacks means that CVE 40711 could be exploited similarly, leading to scenarios where organizations might face double extortion, where attackers not only steal data, but also threaten to release it unless a ransom is paid. Veeam's response. So the good news is that Veeam were really quick to release patches for version 12.2.0.334 of their software, which also addresses 5 other vulnerabilities of lesser severity. All users must update their systems immediately to protect against potential attacks. Users are urged to upgrade to Veeam Backup and Replication version 12.2.0.334 or later immediately. Organizations should also review their network security protocols to ensure that backup servers are not unnecessarily exposed to the internet. They're talking to you, France and Germany. Additionally, regular monitoring and auditing for unauthorized access or unusual activities on the network is essential for maintaining security. And finally this morning, a London high school sent students home following ransomware attack. So, let's dive in. A high school in South London, Charles Darwin School, has been forced to close its doors temporarily due to a severe ransomware attack. The incident has left approximately 1,300 students without access to their educational facilities for the first half of the week. The attack, which was identified as a cyber extortion attempt, which is astonishing given that schools are underfunded and skint, has disrupted the school's IT systems, leading to significant operational challenges and concerns about data security. The school's head teacher, Aston Smith, wrote to the parents and guardians to explain the gravity of the situation. The ransomware attack has compromised the school's IT infrastructure, making accessing essential systems, including email and internet services, impossible. As a precaution, all staff devices have been removed for cleansing, and students' accounts have been disabled to prevent further breaches, reads the letter. There's a link to the letter in this article, and of course, this article will be provided along with all the others from this morning in all the socials, so you can pick it up from there. The school has engaged cybersecurity experts and data recovery specialists to assess the extent of the breach and initiate recovery processes. The Information Commissioner's Office has been notified, and a full data impact assessment is underway to determine what information the attackers may have accessed. Fortunately, cloud-based systems like ParentPay were not affected. Good. So we're not talking about a PCI breach as well. That's lucky. Ransomware attacks on educational institutions have been on the rise globally, with schools becoming frequent targets due to often outdated security measures and limited cybersecurity resources. So, okay, so they are targeting skint institutions because they're too skint to pay for better cybersecurity and expecting them to pay ransoms? Interesting approach. I guess this comes down to cyber liability insurance claims. So rather than the school paying up, the insurers do. Now that makes the whole situation start to make sense from a cyber criminal perspective. In 2023 alone, the education sector saw a significant increase in ransomware incidents, with a 92% spike in attacks on K-12 institutions, which I think are American ones. These attacks disrupt educational activities and pose a risk to sensitive student and staff data. This is actually backed up by another article which I chose not to include in today's daily cyber briefing, in which a very large US group of schools have also been hit by ransomware. So just Google search that if you're interested in educational cybersecurity, because it does seem to be happening more frequently and is all over the cyber news. The NCSC has been actively monitoring these incidents and has previously warned educational establishments about the growing threat of ransomware. Despite these efforts, schools like Charles Darwin face challenges in safeguarding their IT systems against sophisticated cyber criminals. As the school works towards restoring its systems, Parents and students have been advised to remain vigilant and report any suspicious communications. The school is utilising alternative platforms like Satchel One to maintain educational continuity during this challenging period. And that is it. That wraps up today's daily cyber briefing. Once I put my teeth in, I'll be able to speak a bit more clearly, I'm sure. Thank you ever so much for listening. I'll be back tomorrow morning with another selection of interesting news articles. Have a good day, everybody.